I'm going to call an audible here because it seems like the most easy transition given the breaking news of Monday night. In this week's starting five, we have the situation in Notre Dame as number 4. But given your reporting and some other folks reporting, the fact that Mark Campbell may be going from longtime associate head coach and, for lack of a better term, Sabrina Ionescu's buddy, to now being the bag man, being the transfer portal minor in women's college basketball, for me, that deserves number 1 in the starting 5 rotation as we continue today's program. Give us the very latest. The breaking news, of course, in case you missed it last night, folks, on Monday night, Shams of ESPN, Charania, reporting that Olivia Miles, projected to go number 2 in the WNBA draft, the longtime Notre Dame Fighting Irish point guard, has announced that she is foregoing the WNBA draft, instead entering the transfer portal, and the rumored frontrunner for her services is none other than Mark Campbell and TCU. What just happened in the last 24 hours, Mitch?
So first, I have let me just get this complaint off my chest. I
know it's coming. I'm very excited.
I want people in power in women's basketball to figure out how to start a new cycle. Like we went through this on Selection Sunday, where we had a WNBA trade announced, like as the 3rd region of the bracket was being shown. Hey, people who run the WNBA and women's college basketball, a lot of the people who cover one of these sports also covers the other sport. Like you have to know these things. You could have waited until Monday. Nothing was going on Monday. Last night, Monday night in Birmingham, I'm sitting in the arena, sitting on press row, glance at Twitter. Olivia Miles tweet from Shams Charania. She intends to enter the transfer portal per sources and is going to transfer. Just to let people know how the sausage is made a little bit, I have a pretty good idea that this was an agent, working with Shams, saying, you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back, and leaking this to Shams. Why are we doing this in the middle of an Elite Eight game? A lot of people told me that it was because, it's the clock for the WNBA draft. No, folks. Olivia Miles didn't have to declare for the draft until today if she was going to enter the draft, not yesterday. So there was no clock, no timeline she was really bumping up against on Monday night. This was just poor execution, I feel like, by the folks who decided to leak this news out. Like, why are you doing this in the middle of an Elite Eight game? Also, why are you leaking this news to an NBA reporter? There are so many people who cover women's college basketball. I'm not even necessarily mad that I didn't get the scoop. It's whatever. But like, I have so many other.
Like Alexa works at ESPN.
Alexa Philippou.
Mark Vopel works at ESPN. Like,
right?
What are we doing?
Michael Vopel. Whoever. There's so many people. My friend Howard Megdal. Whoever. Yeah. Talia Goodman. There's so many people who cover women's college basketball.
Malika Andrews' sister.
Yes. Yeah. We could go on and on and on. Right. I don't really understand why this news was given to an NBA reporter. I don't understand why it was leaked in the middle of an Elite Eight game.
Shams also, and granted, I think he's located, maybe he's in LA. I thought he was in New York. He also was the first who had the news that Juju had torn her ACL. So maybe this is a play by the higher ups at the mothership up in Connecticut and Bristol, where they say, well, we are going to grow the game of women's basketball by having our most high-profile newsbreaker since Adrian Wojnarowski went back to his alma mater at St. Bonaventure, with all due respect to Adam Schefter, and they're going to have him break it because that signifies this is a big deal to the casual basketball fan.
Yeah, I
don't agree with it either. I agree with you, but that's all I can come away from it with.
Yeah, I don't know if it was an ESPN decision or if it was just the person who works for Olivia Miles' agency deciding, I'm going to give this to Shams. But anyway, so those were my big complaints about how the news got out on Twitter on Monday night. I think we should be a little bit more mindful of like when we're breaking the news and how we're breaking the news. And I point to this all the time. The NFL has really perfected this. They know how to eventize breaking news and to keep you talking about the sport over and over and over again and all the time. Why couldn't the Olivia Miles news come out right now as we're talking?
We're recording this podcast
on Tuesday morning. Nothing would have changed. Like, it wouldn't have impacted her timeline or anything like that. And she didn't, as I reported last night, did not officially enter the transfer portal last night. So it wasn't a situation where a coach at insert school brought up the portal and saw Olivia Miles' name pop up on the spreadsheet. This was someone leaking some information to Shams about, hey, this is what she intends to do. And it's since been confirmed by some other reporters that, you know, she does intend to enter the transfer portal and forgo the WNBA draft. So we can kind of pivot to that point now, just kind of big picture, sort of what this means for Olivia Miles, Notre Dame, the WNBA draft, the whole thing. In Birmingham, it seemed apparent to me, especially in the fourth quarter of that loss to TCU, that Olivia Miles looked like someone who was tired of playing with Hannah Hidalgo. That is just me reading some body language and reading some tea leaves. And I think you look at how Notre Dame's regular season finished. You look at Olivia Miles's numbers in a lot of those games, and they did not really match the same sort of efficiency and production that she was putting up earlier in the season. You know, we've talked about before how it took Niele Ivey over an hour to show up to 2 press conferences after Notre Dame lost at home to Florida State and then in the ACC tournament to Duke. Again, as I've previously made this point, you do not need to have hour-long post-game meetings immediately after a loss if there is not something bigger going on in your locker room. And I think that towards the end of the season, we don't know what happened yet. Maybe we'll find out at some point, but something broke in that locker room. Did NC State break Notre Dame in that double overtime loss? I don't know. But something went wrong somewhere along the way in that locker room. And I thought it was kind of interesting, this pivot that Olivia has made from losing that game, I guess, on Saturday to her decision apparently on Monday night. Because after the game on Saturday, she was telling some reporters in the locker room, some Notre Dame beat writers I saw, that basically she thought that she had outgrown college. Now, maybe she just meant that she had outgrown Notre Dame, because it seems like she's going to play another year of college basketball, which she is entitled to do, and which I'm very excited to see her play another year of college basketball. And
where will she be playing college basketball, in your estimation?
So now we get into that part of it. Like, where is the best fit for Olivia Miles? Where might she go? I think a lot of times when I look at like these superstar transfers, a lot of times it usually comes back to who recruited you in high school and who did you have those best relationships with. And do you remember those coaches, and do you still have those good relationships? I think about this a lot when, you know, Diamond Johnson went into the portal from Rutgers, and Westmore at NC State recruited her really hard out of high school, and she came on down to NC State, and they went to an Elite Eight, and she was ACC Sixth Player of the Year, and it was really good that first year. Then not so good the second year, and then she goes to Norfolk State, where she's been awesome. That said, you know, so the TCU stuff makes sense to me, because I was going back last night, looking a little bit back at Olivia Miles' high school recruitment, and Oregon was one of her finalists, and Mark Campbell was at Oregon when Olivia Miles was being recruited. And Mark Campbell now has a reputation for developing guards, making them better, and getting them ready for the WNBA, from Sabrina Ionescu to Haley Van Lith now having her career best season, you know, under him. And maybe Olivia Miles sees that and goes, maybe that's where I need to play. Because I don't think Olivia Miles is necessarily a player that is going to sort of like go to the highest bidder and like is just in this to sort of secure the bag. She doesn't, you know, as someone who has covered her over a couple of years, she doesn't really strike me as that type of person. I think she wants to win. I think she wants to develop and get ready for the W, and I think she wants to win, you know. Going back to, you know, looking back at her recruitment and stuff last night, I was reading the story on ESPN.com from 2020 where she had basically said if Courtney Banghart had not left Princeton for North Carolina, she would have gone to Princeton. She was that fond of Courtney. She was, she's from New Jersey, was interested in, sort of the playing at home sort of thing. And Princeton was one of her finalists, and so was North Carolina. And I was then reminded, I went back into some of my interview notes from my time I spent with UNC and talking to Courtney Banghart. And we were talking about why she left Princeton. And one of the big sticking points was her recruitment of Olivia Miles, because Olivia had basically told her, I would love to come here. I like you. I like Princeton, but I want to play in the Final Four. And I can't do that at Princeton. That's just the reality of it. As it turns out, never played in the Final Four at Notre Dame either. So I think if North Carolina is in the mix for this, I would not be surprised. I don't know if they are going to get her, but I wouldn't be surprised if TCU, which has already been reported and been out there, is a front runner for her. So I would look at TCU. I would look at North Carolina. I would look at a place like, if she did this, she can never step foot in South Bend again. But like, if you want to win a title, if you want to get ready for the W, there's a little place in Storrs, Connecticut called UConn. And you could go there next year and you could step into Paige Becker's shoes and you could play with AZ Fudd and Sarah Strong. And that sounds like a whole lot of fun if I'm Olivia Miles.
Would that make her the new HVL? Would that be the circle of life if she goes to UConn? Like, would that be the ultimate new Kevin Durant in the sport?
Yes. I think that would make her one of the villains of women's college basketball. But, it would be so much fun. I would be incredibly here for that.
So just to tie a couple things together, again, Mark Campbell was the longtime associate head coach at Oregon. Again, largely was quite simply a longtime assistant who happened to be very involved in the recruitment and the development of Sabrina Ionescu once upon a time. And now here we are. He's in his third year as the head coach at TCU, just took them to their first Final Four, just won their first conference and regular season tournament. And now he is out here mining the portal better than anybody, just so we're clear on that front. And it appears that the fruits of his labor from 4 or 5 years ago are now being paid off in the form potentially of Olivia Miles heading to Fort Worth. I bring all that up to say, I love your insight and your reporting, Mitch, boots on the ground in Birmingham, of that dynamic between Hannah Hidalgo and Olivia Miles. Because don't forget, Sonia Cintron also saying goodbye to South Bend by all accounts. Because at this point in time, I don't know who's going to the WNBA, who's not, even though I know the deadline is on Tuesday, April 1st. Because also Flauja Johnson, which we'll get to that here in just a second, has an opportunity to also go to the W potentially. We will address that here in a second. Point being, for Niele Ivey to lose Olivia Miles, a pillar in her program longer than Hannah Hidalgo, if for no other reason than she's 2 years older. And if there was beef, and again, we don't want to throw that into the ether, but if it appeared there was a strained relationship, whether between the backcourt or between the head coach, the administration, and those two star players, what does that mean for Notre Dame, who we both picked to win it all? What does that mean for them long term?
The talk in Birmingham was just about how much of a disappointment this season was for Notre Dame, and this, how this sort of era of Notre Dame basketball essentially finished up. Because you're right, you don't have Olivia Miles is leaving by all accounts. Sonia Cintron out of eligibility. Maddie Westbeld out of eligibility. Leah Tu King out of eligibility. So now you have coming back to you next season, Hannah Hidalgo and Kate Koval.
And that's it.
And so Notre Dame's going to have to do some work in the portal to put some pieces around Hannah Hidalgo. It's, you look at the Olivia Miles era. When she came onto the scene, and then her true freshman season is paired up with Sonia Cintron and Maddie Westbeld, and then Hannah Hidalgo is coming. The expectation was just that at some point Notre Dame was going to win a title. And to not even get past the Sweet 16 in the 4 years that you have Olivia Miles on campus is a massive disappointment and a massive underachievement. And I don't know where things exactly like went wrong for Notre Dame, but yeah, this is the fourth year in a row that they've lost in the Sweet 16. And Notre Dame is not a program that like hangs banners for making the Sweet 16. And so to have this era of Notre Dame basketball end, the Olivia Miles era, without anything to show for it, really. You know, you did win the ACC title last year in the tournament in Greensboro. That is not a sequence of games that Olivia Miles played in, though, because she was hurt. You know, you have one ACC tournament title to show for the entire Olivia Miles era. You know, no Final Four, no national championship. It's a massive disappointment and underachievement for sure. I don't think Niele Ivey is like on the hot seat or anything. Like, we don't need to go there. You know, they are still winning a whole lot of games and recruiting very well and the whole thing. But yeah, it's a bummer to see this era of Notre Dame basketball in this way and for them to come up so empty in big moments.